Hello there and welcome everybody. A very, very good afternoon and welcome to this Virtual Space Hero LinkedIn Live. I'm really happy to welcome you, particularly because today I think we have a topic that challenged many of us. But let's see who is joining. We are going live and I see already a few people joining from Facebook and from LinkedIn. Amazing, fantastic. Let me see. Thank you very much. Hi. And I see the first are also saying hi on Facebook already. Thank you very much for being with us. You know, Virtual Space Hero LinkedIn Lives, they are always around topics of the virtual space. And we talked about security, we talked about data protection. We have been talking about many different topics, but something that probably many of us were struggling with, namely how to keep a mindful practice for ourselves in the virtual space, is a topic that we have not talked about so far. And that's why I'm really happy to have with me somebody who is practicing mindfulness much more often than I do, because frankly speaking, it's also a topic that I'm struggling with. And it's a person who has been involved in mindfulness practices at IBM for many years and is leading these conversations. So I'm really happy here to welcome on the stage Lele Terenzani. Hello
Hey.
there, and doors are open and he's joining.
Hi, Barbara. Hi, everyone. How are you?
Hi, Lele. How are you doing?
Good. At the end, anytime somebody's asking me, how are you doing? My answer is generally always that I'm doing great, right? And this is kind of connected as well with the topic of today, right? But yes, any moment we are passing in this world is a good moment to be. What do you think?
I think that's really a nice start, because this time, for the first time before I went live and before I went on, we had a mindfulness moment also behind the stage, and I think that's something that I really want to keep for the next times as well. So let's see. Welcome everybody again. Please tell us a little bit, where are you watching from? What is your approach to mindfulness? And also let us know your questions, of course. So just feel free to comment. We are going to pick them up. But let's start a little bit with you, Lele. We got to know each other very recently through the angle, through the stream of positive leadership and virtual events. So, and that's how I got to know you. And then I understood that you were doing much more than positive leadership and much more than virtual events. And I read through your webpage and through your information, and you told me about it. But let's hear about what's your story and how did you came to mindfulness.
I'm an IBMer, so I joined. I was 11 years. I'm working for IBM, and when you work in a corporate, it's not only on this corporate, but many corporate. You tend to do many different jobs, right? So you have a journey into different kind of areas, department, task, and so on, right? So at one point, mostly naturally or mostly due to my also background education, I went into communication. So I'm mostly a communication professional, right? And I tend to just, I usually kind of summarize my job in helping people to pass a message between A to B, right? Regardless for how, because then every single message needs to be passed in a particular and different way. But in the last probably 5 to 6 years, I've been much more as well in learning, right? So, IBM is a big corporation. There are, hundreds of thousands of people. And part of my job is to, provide also virtual or also face-to-face, but mostly virtual learning that can reach out any part of the globe where there is another of my colleagues, sharing whatever topic that can be useful, right? So there are topics I have particularly at heart, but I'm mostly bringing something similar to what we do now, right? So bringing guests, sharing expertise, and making sure that more people are, informed and get more knowledge or get inspired to get that knowledge. And then I bumped into mindfulness in a way when, many of us start or maybe heard from time to time the topic of meditation, right? Either in the past, if you were in those areas, or you were born in that particular generation where there was a kind of a raise of meditation and these kind of ideas, or even recently in several podcasts or applications that you can find on your mobiles and so on. So I'm a podcast passionate. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I don't have only my own one, but I like to listen a lot. And I kept starting listening to a lot about this. So I get curious to know, okay, is it something that makes sense, right? I heard that, meditation is something that helps to calm down, but helps as well your life in general. Somebody said it's something absolutely necessary if you really want to, to have the right dimension, because throughout our life, nobody's telling us about your body. Everybody's telling us about our body, that we need to train our body, but nobody's teaching us how we should train our mind and use our mind properly and what is happening inside of us, right? So
I think that's really great what you're saying, that even in school, if we think about it, we have physical activity and a lot of body training, but really to think about mindfulness, being mindful with yourself isn't really on the agenda. And that's a really very good point. And I think also that's also why we are struggling with being mindful with ourselves. Thanks so much for sharing that thought. So what is being mindful for you? Because I also have my own definition that maybe it's a little bit broken down and very a practical one. But what's the definition or your idea of mindfulness?
So what I figure out is that the definition, there is an official definition that is probably the one that is coming from who brought mindfulness into the US initially from where the teachings of meditation and mindfulness that came. That was John Kabat-Zinn, and he's sharing that meditation is more of that particular practice that is paying attention, like helps you to pay attention deliberately on something, right? And non-judgmentally, right? So it's paying attention to what is happening inside of you and outside of you. So that is the kind of a definition of mindfulness. For me, mindfulness is knowing that you are doing something, meanwhile you are doing it. Knowing you are talking to me in the moment we are doing that, without being lost in a thought, or without being on the autopilot. Now that might sound weird, like to say, okay, of course I'm talking to you now, Lele, what are you saying? But in reality, think about your life. Think about at the end of your days, maybe at the end of today or at the end of yesterday, and how many times you were aware about that thing you were doing, and how many times in that you just did the things because you were in the flow mostly. You were just, I need to wash my dishes, you just do that. I need to switch on the media or the live streaming. I need to talk to that person. But you weren't really there. You weren't aware that the whole consciousness and experience and attention was, unwrapping in front of you. And that is the key to mindfulness, is learning to pay attention to the flow of you living moment by moment.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying. And particularly, I was studying new ways of working and new ways of learning for many years when I was working at the university. And I think that's our challenge, because we're confronted with so many communication channels, but also information floating or overloading us from everywhere. Of course, it is hard sometimes for us if we don't know how to do that and how to self-discipline ourselves, self-discipline in as well, in order to stay in the moment, to be present. And I do, for me, for example, really feel like that's one of the most important things for me when it comes to mindfulness, to wherever you are, that you are really there, or whatever you're doing, that you're really doing that. To be very fair, I'm not so sure if I extended that much to my cooking practices, because I know usually when I cook, I have a call with somebody. I'm totally aware of that. Maybe I should reconsider that. I'm going to do that. But I also think, for me, mindfulness, and maybe let's talk a little bit about the virtual space, because this is also what was happening to many of us. Maybe some of us were mindful, or were able to be mindful, while we were still in a pre-corona time. We were going to work, we had our our known environment, but suddenly from one day to another, we were in the virtual space. And I did have the feeling that because of so many meetings, we were all zoomed out already, that people found it more difficult to be mindful when working online. How did you perceive that?
I think, there are several applications, because the being aware of whatever you are doing in the moment you're doing has a lot of gives you kind of superpowers. And in terms, if you discuss about when distractions, right? So it might help you more to realize you have been distracted, right? So no, how many times to pick up your phone and you had no idea why you picked it up, right? You stare at those applications and just open and close them, and okay, why? What is the reason? And you just try to invent yourself to maybe check a notification, but you didn't really need it. It was just an automatic thing, right? So these are distractions, because maybe you were focusing on your work, and then some notification comes and you get taken there. So if you are able to check in instead in the present, so check in into I'm aware, I'm being distracted, you can easily come back and somehow distract yourself, or just regain your focus. And later on, like when the pandemic came, and now we all realize not only to be working at home on a virtual space, but at the same time to perhaps have fears and feel lonely, maybe. And this is also part of understanding what is happening, right? So I totally understand that people can be scared, or people can be feeling lonely in some situation, but at the same time, I also understand that in the moment when you start rationalizing it, when you start okay, I'm at home, is there a reason for me to be scared if I'm at home, right? I'm going to the supermarket and I'm wearing the mask and doing a lot of all this kind of safety measure I take. Is there a reason for me to be scared about it? No, at the end, the answer is perhaps is no. There is no reason, because I'm following things that I just do one thing by the other. But the fear is something that you cannot perceive. It doesn't exist in reality, right? It's something just that you can feel in some moments, but if you rationalize, it might go away. And that's where mindfulness might help, because if you are able to come again into the present, come in the things you're doing, or come in and analyze the fear in yourself, you might start rationalizing, and maybe it goes away, or maybe you find a reason of it, so that you understand much more about yourself.
But that means, of course, and I think that came up in many other LinkedIn lives, the question or the challenge is a little bit that sometimes we, not all of us have like this skill of self-reflection, or we don't take the time. It's both happening a little bit. And I think that's very much connected.
Yes. Self-reflection, the first thing, the first step for, understanding, everything about you is looking inside of you, right? It's not looking outside. It's not looking in the mirror. It's just closing your eyes and observing your mind. What are the thoughts that are coming into you? Where do you see the pain, the stress in your body? And this is like self-reflection, self-compassion, right? So kind of appreciating ourselves, because at the end, in this world, we start from us, right? That's the first step. And when you have a strong basis, right, then you can move on to understand better what is the world outside of us. But first, it starts with us.
And I think that's also so important because I was just now doing a workshop on positive leadership, indeed.
Mm-hmm.
And we did quite a long part of the workshop was just about self-reflection, about their own strength, because positive leadership is based on, it's a strength-oriented leadership. And of course,
Yes.
many of us, we are not really aware about what our strengths are, and that was really an interesting part of the workshop. But on the other hand, if I look at my teaching, I'm teaching at many different universities, and really it doesn't depend what country we are talking about. One thing is really that self-reflection is nothing that we are really teaching or trying to foster in a higher education context, for example. It's the same.
I don't remember I got ever this type of teachings as well. And nobody at the school, they always tell you, how you should behave, or maybe that you should be, not be scared, right? Don't be scared. Come on, you can't tell this usually to the kids, right? There is no reason to be scared. Let's rationalize it. But nobody ever taught me how the process of our thoughts are happening. Nobody ever taught me that I'm not the one that is making the thoughts I'm making. Like, it's not on me to decide the next thought I'm going to have. I mean, if you really look at it, how can you know that you really chose to think that thing you're thinking? Maybe now you're thinking, something you're going to have to do later, or maybe you're thinking about something I am saying, but at the same time, exactly what you're thinking, you didn't really chose. It happened in your mind at the same time as other things happen around. And this was very much changing for me, because I started understanding, okay, now when I start having these thoughts, when I start having the awareness of my thoughts, of my realization, of my fears, of whatever thing, of my self-reflection, then I'm able to observe them from a different light. I'm able to, have much more of understanding. Maybe I cannot change those thoughts. I cannot, for example, think about the judgment. Now we talk, mindfulness is a non-judgmental practice that says you shouldn't judge the things, because you should actually be more aware of the things you are judging before of just clothing them behind a judgment. To think a noise. A noise, I always say a noise is a judgment, because noise is just a sound that you judge to be noisy. And that's when you hear noise and you say, this is noisy, then you cannot focus on your work, or you cannot focus on things. It's just too noisy. But if you see it as a sound without getting a judgment, okay, this for me maybe is noisy. That's why I tend to, you have a different reaction, right? You might be open to that and maybe learn to refocus more, because, okay, that's not a noise. That is something coming in, like other things. And that, also connecting with inclusion, including other people, understanding what are our biases and so on. It comes from us, starts from us.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because I think it relates a little bit. Vincent was commenting a little bit earlier already, self-inclusion first for group inclusion later. And so, of course, if we think about that, having a mindful, non-judgmental practice, clearly it is something that also helps us to reduce our unconscious biases, definitely, right?
At least understanding. I mean, we grew up, we didn't choose to grow up or to be born in a place where we were born. It just happened that we were born in the nationality we have, the whatever thing we are, it's just happened. But and that means that the whole culture behind us, it's there, it's in us, right? If we are born in a culture that is less inclusive for certain different cultures, we cannot, cancel it, because it's innate sometimes, or we've been discussed with since we were born. But what we can do is to see it happening, to say, okay, this is maybe the stereotype I'm having, and now I can choose. I mean, it stops in my mind, and then I can choose how to act. Okay, but this stereotype is not correct. It's based on a past, or it's based on history. Maybe now I should act differently, and that's how we can be more inclusive later on.
So I'm super curious, and our viewers out there for sure as well. So what are you really doing at IBM to foster mindfulness practices? What are the actions practices that you foster there?
So I have to say it's not an IBM driven program, right? It's not something that the corporate mandated everybody to do. It's more something grassroots, right? Something that people like me, that they were, passionate about this topic, that found out that they wanted to practice, started connecting virtually with other colleagues and created a community. Like in IBM, there is kind of every individual can really contribute to the whole community internally, right? We help each other, we share not only work-related things, but also other things, right? So that's where we started a big community. It wasn't me. At one point I joined, right? I found out that there were other colleagues that were interested in the topic. And I found it in my space because I'm located in Slovakia. There were still some demand, right, of it. So we just organized maybe a meeting, and now we meet, for example, in my location, there is like twice a week, and we practice together. So people that don't know about mindfulness, they can join the meeting, like a virtual meeting, and just ask their question, like, I don't know, tell me more. And the more experienced one, they just come to do a practice. Right, so we just do like jogging or running. We do a mindful practice, and then the same kind of local practice, are happening mostly all around the world. So there are other people that are willing to lead the practice or to share or to organize these kind of gatherings, and that's how more people get to know this topic, and more people perhaps try to share the good practice.
Okay, interesting. And how does it work? So, for example, if you gather together twice a week virtually, and you say jogging, so how do you do that, jogging virtually?
So let's say we acknowledge the fact that if you do physical training, you become better into that training you do. So you do just push up, and then the first day you are like totally tired, the second day it comes okay, and then the week after you can do more push up, and then after 2 months you are great in doing push up, and you can do even with one hand and so on, right? So we know that the body becomes better if we do that. It's not enough if you do one push up now, you're not becoming better. You need to do it regularly. That's why practice is important. So neuroscience considers something called neuroplasticity for our brain, that is basically the same as our body. So means that we are what we practice also for our brain. So if we practice certain things, our brain becomes better in that particular thing. But in the same way as if you practice anger, like you are okay to be more angry, the next time that situation is appearing, you are more likely to become angry again. Right, so you practice also not only the positive things, but everything, right? So that's where I was discussing that mindfulness is attention. Is the key to mindfulness is being aware that you are doing what you're doing in the moment you're doing it, in order that you can experience it. Right, you are now sipping your water. In the moment when you sip your water, you might follow just the normal, just I take and drink it, or I can take some time, right? And let me take some time to not only observe the water, but when it comes into you. There is a wetness, there is a feeling that is coming in your throat. There is the moment where you drink water, right? You can become aware that you are drinking. That, I would say maybe sounds weird, right? But that's for me a way. I'm now in the present. Now I'm aware. Now next time I'm getting distracted, I'm still aware. So you need to become better into realizing you are aware of doing what you're doing. You are aware of experiencing moment by moment. So that's what the practice we do is. This is the muscles, is increasing the muscles of our awareness, the quality of our attention. And that's how we practice. We try to pay attention to certain things. And the more we train our attention, the better we become to pay attention during our days or during our lives. So if you want, we can try a little practice. So just to show you what we do, right? Something simple, something that you can really do anywhere. So there are many ways, like sports, many ways to practice mindfulness, as there are many sports. And you don't really have to close your eyes and do these kind of things as many consider. You can really, there are many way you choose the practice that is good for yourself. So now, one thing you can do maybe in the morning or when you come to your desk or open your laptop, right, and so on, just for 1 minute. Let's time 1 minute. And we can do it now. Let's say now is the moment. Just feel, if you're sitting, feel your chair. That means feel the point of contact of your body to the chair. Really feel it. Like bring your attention to anything that your body is touching with the chair. And you can pay attention to it. And now bring this attention to your weight. So how heavy you can feel you, right? So bring your attention to that weight of you. The gravity. You can maybe pay attention to the gravity. Become now aware about your clothes. We wear our clothes the whole day, but we don't notice that we are wearing their clothes. So become aware you have a t-shirt. Maybe Barbara, you have a dark t-shirt. So become aware of that. You can even bring your attention to your underwear. If you really look into it, you can feel only that piece, that part that is actually, on you the whole day. It's still pointing your attention. Now point your attention to the temperature in the room. There might be, you feel warm or cold. To the air. You might be able even to perceive the air that is on any part of where you have just a naked skin, like on your arms or face. There might be some air circulation around you. Now become aware of the sounds in the room. There might not be only my voice, but there might be other sounds around you in this room or outside the room where you are. You don't need to focus on anything. Just bring your awareness there. And to finish, become aware of yourself breathing and to take 2 deep breaths. And we can start, but when you take the deep breath, feel the whole experience of breathing, right? So taking in air, observe how the air comes in and bring the air out and do it again. Now, if during this process you manage to really bring your focus and attention only onto those things I was pointing out, then that's something. But most of the times we start, even after a minute, our mind start going aware. What am I doing? What is that sound? And that's a normal thing. That's how our brain works. So the practice there is really to become aware of our thoughts, of all the things that bring our attention away instead of where our attention should be. And just when we notice that, just bring that attention back, right? So let's do a final deep breath. Just on all your attention, doesn't have to be on the live streaming, doesn't have to be anywhere else, just on yourself doing 1 breath. And that's it. So that's a practice. It's nothing special, nothing rocket science, right? But what we really did is exercise. You exercise attention. And the more you do this, if you do this regularly, you can do once a day. I tendentially try to do like half an hour every day, or even a little bit more, depends on the time, but usually in average, I can say half an hour. In the evening, maybe slightly before going to sleep, I take my time and I observe my mind, I observe my breath, I observe the sounds. I choose that day what to observe. And if you do that, you will definitely notice a change in your days, into you realizing that your life is something that you can feel you are living at the same time, instead of just be in the movie. You see yourself looking at the movie, let's say.
I think this is fantastic because it relates also very much what Molly is saying, and she mentioned it a little bit before because she's framing it as meta thinking, to think about our thinking. As you were saying, we can see us in the movie, so to really put it on a meta level, what is going on. I really like that. Thank you so much for guiding us through the practice. I must say that we do know, and I, for example, I've been using Headspace for quite some time. So Headspace is an app that you can download, and I'm just for everybody out there. It's a beautiful app that personally I think is also amazingly built up because you have these meditation or mindfulness because depending on the amount of time you have or you want to dedicate, I just plug in my headset and I take the 3, 5, 7, or 10 minutes. And what I experienced again, I think that's really interesting. I needed to close my eyes. And of course, it was beautiful because you, with your voice, you were guiding the people through that mindfulness moment. And I do feel that, of course, visual distractions are super heavy. Because I do see here the StreamYard screen and everything, comments floating in. So clearly for me, this is also difficult sometimes. But just closing the eyes and waiting for a moment, it's really great. Yeah, and Brad is also saying fantastic. Brad also loves Headspace. Thank you so much. Yes, I definitely want to recommend that because even I've been using the free version for over a year and I'm still super happy with that. And
yeah,
also
you have daily free session, right? With that tool. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely fine. And
cool.
there's also somebody saying, let me just see, somebody's suggesting about yoga to help to get in touch with our body, attention and breathing.
Yeah.
So she's also referring to what we were saying beforehand, neuroplasticity, repetition, frequency, and focusing. Let me just give you a second. I'm dragging it in here. Here it is again. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much for adding the yoga point and also confirming the neuroplasticity argument. Thank you so much out there. And it's fantastic because also Brett is saying that Headspace has also great content for kids. I wasn't aware of that. Did you know that?
Oh yeah. I would love, like, going back, I would love my parents to have taught me this. Right, to have taught me the possibility to know how to deal with my emotions, what is the reason and nature of my emotions, and how my mind is working. Right, so it's important actually that if you're a parent, right, you just bring their awareness. Why they are getting angry, or when they are getting disappointed, or why they are getting their attention going away. Right, kids are. It's hard for them for so many kids to bring the attention where the attention has to be because they kept getting distracted. They might learn slowly, right? And then when they will be older, they will probably leverage from these teachings. So yes, there are a lot of opportunities for kids.
Absolutely. Super cool. Manuela, thank you so much for sharing. You're recommending the app Calm. I don't know that one, but I do see that
Calm
also
is good as well.
Confirming that he likes it. So fantastic. Because apparently Calm reminds you to breathe properly. I did not know that. Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. There are quite a lot of practitioners out there in mindfulness. Let us see. Thank you so much. Also, George is sharing. He's doing 1 hour of meditation of the Dalai Lama, which involves going from the present point to the end of the universe and back. A great relief from the computer. Totally. I can absolutely imagine that, particularly now, as we are so much in front of the computer. There it is, his comment.
At the end, one of the parts of the mindfulness practice can also be with imagination, right? So instead of feeling what is appearing around your senses, is imagining. And imagination technique is exactly helping us well to go somewhere. We are great travelers with our mind, right? We can go anywhere. But important if we are aware we are doing this travel.
I think on one hand, it's really fantastic because we do see that that applications, there are quite a lot of applications that can help us to manage our mindfulness or to become more aware of the mindfulness. But there was one very good question a few minutes ago, and I'm just trying to find it and drag it in. And the question was about whether technology makes it harder to be mindful. And I think that's an important question because on one hand, we do see that there are fantastic apps that help us to manage our mindfulness or to be more mindful or to help us practice it. But on the other hand, we have so many applications that sometimes we are not even aware that we need to switch off all the notifications because otherwise we cannot be present in whatever we're doing because there are always pop-ups from like 1,000 other apps that we have installed. So what is your take on that? What do you think? Is it harder to be mindful because of technology?
I think technology can help. You can set up reminders for yourself to do your practice during the day. You can even set it up that the moment when you come home, automatically all the notifications are off. You can have the technology at your hand, like that. It can help you if you set up the right way, that you are not getting disturbed by it. But what I usually always try to advocate is you should self-regulate yourself, right? It's not the technology the problem, it's always your mind. It's always how you deal with it, right? If you have problems because there are too many notifications, then go there into your notification settings and switch them off so that you remember when you have to go and check that application. I switched off all the notification of almost all the apps on my mobile. So when I want to check if I have a message, I just take some time during the day, maybe 3 or 4 times a day, and I check, okay, do I have messages in this place? If I know that I expect somebody, then of course I know that I go there. But I try to regulate myself instead of having somebody else regulating me. And that's I try to be mindful.
Yeah, absolutely. And as Vincent is saying, technology should be a help, of course. But you know what I was thinking sometimes is that not all of us, we have the digital literacy as well to know and to think about switching off all the push notifications that we have on the cell phone, on the computer, and so on and so forth. So I remember like half a year ago, I was talking to one of the secretaries at my university, and I was at her computer. We were looking at a program, and there were like the Microsoft Outlook not pop-ups in the screen. There was another tool popping in, and the whole screen was always full of pop-ups. And I was getting super nervous. And I was like, "Doesn't it bother you?" Because of course I won't tell her how to work, but I was like, "How can you work like that?" And she was like, "Oh, can I really turn it off?" So I think also a lot of knowledge and training when it comes to digital literacy is super important. So technology should be of help. But should not control us. I think that's nice. So that's a strong comment. Don't let technology control us. Exactly. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
You can do a little practice actually, try when you go on social media or when you go and open your mobile, try to notice where is your attention going. Right? Just see, okay, now what are you looking at and why are you looking at that? And that's the first step to understand what is capturing you so much. And then you can start regulating from there.
So it's super important to be mindful throughout the day. So for example, I do have many friends that already, thank you very much, Rafia, for the comment. So yes, we need to be mindful throughout our whole day. And I think we need to be, of course, also very mindful in the way that we use the technology clearly. And so I do know, for example, many people who already installed, I don't know, it's a social media controller, or I don't know how those apps are called, that only let you go online on your cell phone in certain apps for a certain amount of time in order not to spend your whole day on whatever social media channels you're on. But may I just pull up one last thing, because I'm super sure, and I hope really you people out there asked yourself why the title of today's LinkedIn Live was not only how to be mindful in the virtual space, but how to grow productive tomatoes. And you know why? We're going to reveal this secret now, right, Lele?
Oh yeah, we can. Definitely.
I think it's totally time to reveal the secret. And I think that's something we wanted to talk about a little bit also with you out there, because I, for example, did find, and there it goes, the Pomodoro Technique is very useful, particularly when people are working in a virtual space, because it is a very, very structured method to work and even work together in a structured way. So you're familiar. You worked also with the Pomodoro Technique, right, Lele?
Yes. I started many years ago actually with that technique. I love that because it had an Italian name, right? It was like, wow, Pomodoro, what is this? Since I'm originally from Italy, so that captured my attention, and then I looked more in it and I started adopting it. Yeah.
Exactly, that's really nice. Pomodoro, so the tomato technique, is about a very, I would say, deep work session, deep focused work sessions. And Pomodoro technique foresees that you really set an alarm, and they call it a Pomodoro because you could buy like a small alarm that looks like a Pomodoro, and you set that for 25 minutes, just so that we all talk about the same. You set that alarm for 25 minutes and you switch off everything else, and you only work on the task that you are supposed to work on. Then you do a break, 5 minutes of break, another 25 minutes work session, another break. So I think that's also fantastic because it always includes it, and it always is really also very focused on the breaks. And after 3 or 4 Pomodoros, like those deep focus work session, you take a longer break. And it's really amazing because my personal experience with Pomodoro Technique is fantastic. I think it's so great if you really commit to one task and you don't get distracted, because what we also know from neuroscience, we are not multitasking. It's just we need to work faster to get more things done if we switch around between different tasks, right? So, Lele, how do you use the Pomodoro Technique if you work? Or even with teams, do you use it somehow?
I had it only as an individual practice, right? So I didn't expand it into teams. For teams, I have maybe sometimes we put a timer, for example, when we do a brainstorming, right? You just put maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes. But Pomodoro for me was like a personal, it is every day a personal practice, right? And I experimented in many ways, right? So first I started organizing the whole day with Pomodoros. Like to say, okay, every single chunk of 25 minutes is a Pomodoro, not since the morning. But then I figured out that it was impossible because a lot of the work we do is unstructured, right? You're just, somebody has to ask you something, somebody else. So I had to leave some spaces for the unstructured work. So I started shrinking the Pomodoros, getting to a maximum of no more than 5 per day. And these 5 are my focus time. So I'm a video editor and graphic designer when I do communication, because I need to make, edit videos or do posters and graphics or social media banners and so on. So when I have to work on that video and that graphic, then I set up a Pomodoro and I put, let me put those 25 minutes. And I just focus on the editing. And when it finishes, I dare to take the break, stand up, and so on. And I figured out that it's very connected with mindfulness, because how do you manage to not being distracted? How do you manage to remove your distraction for those 25 minutes? How do you manage to decide to really stop that, even if the work is not finished, and go for that break before coming back and going? So you need a lot of self-regulation before even starting with that technique.
I think that's really, really a very important point. Self-regulation, self-discipline as well. And you know what? Now there is a super big reveal for the community out there. Some of you have already participated, because within the Virtual Space Hero membership platform, I do organize group Pomodoros. I call it a spacing community. So if you go to the webpage and if you go to the membership area, you're being invited. And what I do for remote workers, whatever remote worker you are, I organize these deep focus work session in a group setting. And that really works lovely as well. And we use in the breaks in between, we use music, we use stretching, and afterwards we always have a little bit of an accountability element because I organize them in Zoom. And before we start, we get to know each other in small groups where we talk with each other about the project. We come back, we have a deep focused work session. Then we have a break, we do stretching, we do dancing, whatever it is. Then we go again back to work. And at the end, the same groups that were presenting themselves to each other at the beginning do another accountability round at the end. And it's really super nice because that's also how you can do it in the virtual space within a group. So all of you out there, you're very much invited to sign up, and you're getting the next invitations for the spacing community as well. Fantastic. Let's see a little bit into our comments. And I do see that there is a little bit about artificial intelligence going on. Artificial intelligence, what's the relation to mindfulness? Is that compatible? Whoa, I give that question to you, Lele.
I would say connected with mindfulness, artificial intelligence is, we can use it if we want to, to understand about our own distractions, right? You know that, for example, many times social media know better who we are than ourselves. Right, because because actually sometimes it's true. If you understand your behavior, we do things without noticing we are doing them, right? So if you know you are looking at certain things, your mouse cursor goes on certain areas, you click here and there, you spend certain time on this. At one point, you can define your personality pretty much closely to what it really is, and maybe you didn't even notice certain things yourself, right? But so that's where artificial intelligence can take humanity in understanding a lot about yourself, but without even the need to look inside yourself, right? But I think personally that we can achieve that already on our own, and this is much more fulfilling because in itself, not only it's good to know ourselves, right, and it's good to learn how to to be in the present, but also because you enjoy, like when you know you are doing that, when you know you are dancing and you're totally aware you're dancing, you start experiencing yourself dancing, right? And that means you start experiencing, okay, am I happy in that moment I'm dancing? What are the movement? What is the music? What is the light around me, right? What is the person that I'm sharing this dance? It's much more pleasant when you eat and you just really focus on the taste you're eating, on the crunchiness, the texture, the smell of what you are in front. You eat much more pleasantly. You enjoy it instead of just swallowing stuff because you have other stuff to do. And perhaps even eat less because you notice when you are full, because instead of, sometimes people eat in front of the TV tend to eat more just because it just, you just don't notice it. So there is a lot to gain from being mindful that the AI cannot actually give us.
Super, super cool. Thank you so much for sharing all the insights. And thank you so much out there for your comments, for your engaging conversation, and for your questions as well. So with this, we have been online already for around 45 minutes. And with this, it's just sort of my last message. Of course, as you know, become a hero of the virtual space. Join our Virtual Space Hero community. If you go to the webpage, you can sign up for the Explorer membership for free, and maybe we see you in one of our next spacing communities online. And with this, Lele, thank you really so much again for your for being here with me on the LinkedIn Live show. I wish you all the best. It's a pleasure work with you, and for all of you, I'm going to tag Lele later on in this conversation because you need to connect with him. He's really not only a mindfulness expert, he's also very big when it comes to streaming, podcasting, and also to comicking. I do as if that was a verb. He is drawing amazing comics for conferences and events, and I'm going to tag them also here into the post. Thank you very much for everyone out there for joining the conversation. And Lele, I'm wishing you a really beautiful day in Slovakia. And we are connecting very soon, okay?
Likewise. Thank you for your time and for listening to everyone. Thank you, Barbara, for inviting me.
Thank you very much. Bye, everybody. Have a lovely, lovely day. Enjoy it. Bye-bye.